6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the most amazing homesteading channel in the universe that has nothing whatsoever to do with homesteading. Homesteading off the grid. Now, would whoever is holding Mother Nature's beer while she allows us all to enjoy all 4 seasons in a 24-hour period, please just go ahead and dump it out, because clearly she's had enough to drink already. All right, and now, a reading from the dreaded scroll. Got a lot of responses to yesterday's stories that were sent in, and that's what I really like about this channel. It has nothing to do with green beans and snow peas. Those are just foods. It has to do with stories that really happened, and when people come forward with the courage to share their stories, it's amazing how many follow-up stories we get from people who had similar experiences. And then that way, all these people they don't feel alone. I mean, instead of sitting in your house eating a bowl of snow peas or a bowl of green beans, feeling alone, share your stories instead, brah, and feel united, because we're all in this together. All right, so here's a good one. Yesterday we had a gentleman named Derek. I wish I could remember his last name, but I read hundreds of these a day. Something I learned when I was down in Key West last month, January and February. Harry Truman signed his signature 600 times a day from the little White House there in Key West, Florida, where he spent, I think a total of 9 months total out of his 7-ish years of presidency. Yeah, down there. So anyway, this is from Carlotta. Carlotta writes, "Hi, Ken." Well, Derek. Derek shared a story. He spent 19 years working in the healthcare field, and he would spend like the last moments of so many people as they were dying, as they were passing on. He had to record the last 6 seconds that they were alive, so that the doctors could use that as their time of death for the records. And he mentioned that 5 or 6 times throughout his career, he was spending time with people that were brain dead. They were hooked up to a ventilator machine, only being kept alive by the machine. And once, the folks have decided to pull the plug, they were waiting for that one last person, maybe that one last family member to get there, who just hadn't shown up yet. But once that family member got there and entered the room and spoke, within 1 minute, those people passed away. That's really neat. So I have to give you that backstory in case you missed yesterday's video, so you'll understand the significance of Carlotta's story. Carlotta writes, "Hi, Kevin. Glad you're back from our recent trip. This is a confirmation of Derek's report of people waiting for a special person before leaving this dimension. You can share my story if you like, using my name, Carlotta." Show me how to pronounce it. Thanks, because I probably would have called you Carl Alada or something. I don't know. She continues, "It was 1964. I describe my family as an Italian commune, as it was my grandparents, my aunt, my mother, my sister, and myself who lived together, and we hosted uncles, aunts, cousins, and friends every week, and especially holidays. I was very close with my grandfather, even though he spoke very little broken English. We communicated very well. Grandfather suffered with asthma and an enlarged heart for many years. He was heartbroken when his beloved wife had died from a stroke about a year before, and he was missing her dearly. Somehow I knew I would find him ill one day when I returned from school. I just had a feeling it was coming. I was 9 or 10 years old when the day came, and I found him shaking uncontrollably with fever. I grabbed a wool blanket and wrapped him up and told him I was going to the kitchen to call Mom. She left her work immediately and arrived home in 5 to 10 minutes. My aunt arrived shortly after, and they took him to the emergency. He had pneumonia, and he was hospitalized. Every day, my aunt, who was more like my mom, would go to visit him. I always insisted on going with her. She would always tell me, 'You can come with me, but you will not be allowed into the hospital to see him.' At that time, no one under 16 years old was allowed in due to childhood diseases, because they didn't want to risk exposure to adult patients already in a vulnerable state of health. I would go every time and wait in the waiting room, anxious to hear how he was doing, if he would be better, if he would come home. About midweek, she told me grandfather would not be coming home. His heart was giving out. Every day when we went, I would ask my aunt to ask the doctors if I could see him, but always the same answer, against the rules. I finally insisted on seeing him, telling my aunt in no uncertain terms. He is waiting for me. He wants to see me to say goodbye. They finally allowed me in to see him. The joy on his face at seeing me will be with me forever. He said he was waiting for me, and I said, I know, I love you, and I'm so glad I got to see you, wrapping my arms around him as best I could, where he lay for a semi-hug. We visited for a short time, then we had to leave. I thanked my aunt for getting me in to see him, between tears on the drive home. Grandfather went into a coma that night and passed a day or two later. He and I were at peace. Wow. That's an endearing story. Thanks for that story, Carlotta. It's like this old man just loved her so much, he just didn't want to pass on without seeing her to say goodbye. Folks, if you have any stories of anything pertaining to anything just unexplainable, strange, supernatural, paranormal, cryptids like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, UFOs, aliens, abductions, things from the spirit realm, interdimensional, you can share them with us at crazylake@mail.com. You must give us permission to share your story and let us know if we're allowed to use your name. If not, we can keep you anonymous if you wish, okay? Here's one from Joanna. This is really neat. You'll also remember in yesterday's video, First Sergeant Stormy, big shout out to First Sergeant Stormy, one of our faithful followers for some time now, sent in the picture of like an orb that very close friends of hers, no other information about them will be disclosed. They captured this on an indoors security camera while they were away on a trip. This thing triggered the security camera, and she sent us a picture. She wanted to know what everybody thought. Tons and tons of reactions in the comment section. Thanks for all that. Again, this is from Joanna. This is her take on it. She writes, the light being angel in the photo is exactly what appeared in my room during a migraine back in November 2023. So she believes it's an angel. When the incident happened, I was not asleep, just lying down. My eyes were closed when I felt this odd energy shift as if something walked in. I briefly opened my eyes just for a moment. I didn't see anything unusual. I passed it off. Kevin and Stormy, I kid you not, here's the creepy part. Just as I closed my eyes, bam! I'm no longer alone, definitely sensing two shapes, one standing close to the bed, the other presence above my head. And now then, I hear a woman's voice coming from above my head saying she suffers with headaches. That was it for me. OMG, my eyes popped open. You can't make this stuff up. I clearly see a 7 feet tall, muscular shape light being staring at me. What stuck out was its eyes. The iris was a bright amber color. And she sent me the picture of an amber iris. Not from the angel, but just what it would look like. So imagine that. Very similar to this yellow, but says a little bit more orange to it. The being had no skin covering all of its internal veins. Arteries were exposed. Chest area, no heart. What I saw looked like a ball of moving, pumping energy. I was frozen. I couldn't move. This being leaned over me, lifted up my head, looking into my eyes, then proceeded to push its finger into my right eye socket, then into the left eye, where the migraine was still active. Right at that moment, I heard a high-pitched sound. The being then removed its finger. The migraine was gone. Then it placed my head down, touched my forehead, and I went out like a light. I woke up later and ran into the bathroom to check my eyes. Nothing looked different, but to this day, I have not suffered any migraines. Wow. Sincerely, Joanna. Feel free to use my name. So, Joanna was, a migraine sufferer, and a couple of beings showed up. Energy, she refers to them as angels at the beginning of the story. Angels. Migraine's gone, and she hasn't had one since. Incredible. Isn't that so much more entertaining than snow peas and green beans? All right, now we have one from Rhonda. Rhonda writes, Kevin, we love your channel and thanks for your dedication. God bless you and your family. Okay, around 1990, this is a good one. Around 1990, I went to a meat market, and I was driving to the market. I passed by where an old friend used to work who had passed away like 15 or so years prior to this. Hear the frogs? They just came out. I love that sound. Mother Nature, put the bottle down. Let it just stay spring for like a while. Okay? Mother Nature's laughing at me like Woody the Woodpecker. She's like, I'm fixing to make it winter again, brah. All right. So she drove past a place where a friend used to work who had passed on 15 years prior to this, okay? Well, coming out of the meat market, I grabbed a Reedsville paper from the outside machine, like a newspaper. Note, he passed away years before this. Yeah, 15 years before. I got home, opened that newspaper, and holy crap, his obituary was in that paper. That paper was from the year he died. He passed on, by the way, because he made the choice to take his own life. I'm not allowed to say the word she wrote. It starts with an S. You know what it is, but social media is still, like, you can literally get a copyright, or not copyright, but a community guideline and policy strike against you if you use that S word on social media. Isn't that insane? So, not to detract from her story, but he had made the choice to take his own life. OMG, she continues, I freaked. I went back to that market immediately and got another paper just to see the dates, and there were no more papers like that dated one in the machine. You tell me, was he communicating with me somehow? I still to this day get chill bumps thinking about that. Now here I am 15 years or so after he passed, and there is a newspaper dated that many years previous with his obituary in it. Strange. You can share this. God bless, Rhonda. Wow, Rhonda, that's insane. What do you think, folks? I mean, come on. Let Rhonda know what you think in the comment section about that. That's an amazing story, isn't it? All right, now listen. No matter how out there they sound, I mean, because all this stuff sounds out there, right? And that's what's so cool. If you send it and you give me permission to do so, I will read it. Just like this one that I got from Eric Meifert from Mukwonago, Wisconsin. Hey, Wisconsin did a good job there in the Big Ten finals. They almost beat Michigan. Go Badgers in the tournament, you know, if you're a fan. So here's Eric's email. Eric writes, about a year ago, I watched an interview with Stephen Greer and Danica Patrick. We all know Dr. Greer. He's a UFOologist. I'm thinking Danica Patrick or Danica Patrick. Is that the NASCAR race girl that does a bunch of commercials now? I don't know. But he continues. He claimed he could meditate and summon ETs, extraterrestrials. So on a moonless night with some fog, I tried to completely zone out or meditate while in my jacuzzi. I live on a tree line with thick woods to a river half a mile behind us. I must have nodded off a bit, only to awaken to a beautiful-looking craft flying by quite low. The craft had wings that tipped down with illuminating green lighting on the wings' leading edges. I was shocked, to say the least. WTF did I just witness, or was I dreaming? The craft flew by without a sound, disappearing past my house and my neighbors. I wanted to hop out of the hot tub to follow with my eyes, but part of me was just too scared to, so I sat there trying to understand what I think or analyze what I saw. I went inside, told my wife, who wrote me off. I did draw her a picture of it too. I have not tried to meditate or zone out like this again. Please feel free to use my encounter. Eric Meifert in Mukwonago, Wisconsin. First of all, Eric, what I'll say is, you got no idea how many pictures I've drawn for my wife of the crazy stuff I've seen. And she's like, you on that Lord's lettuce again? Crazy Lake? Hell, now the gray squirrels are laughing. You know, I was hanging out with my buddy Heath from over at Heath's house this weekend down there at the Outer Banks, North Carolina. I told him something. He looks at me and he says, you know they do call you Crazy Lake, right? So, Eric, I feel your pain. And that's one of the wonders, again, about this channel. You can send your odd stories in here, and you'll find that there's tons of people that have had similar experiences. When you think about, was it a dream? Was it real? Was Eric, you know, did you have him a bowl of the Lord's lettuce? I don't know. But that reminded me strangely of something that happened in Iraq, and I'm going to share that with you. Here's a 3 or 4 minute long story. Then I got to get on Piglet and go keep working on the chicken house I'm working on. A lot of you folks asked, are the chickens okay? Because we were gone for a 4-day trip. They're great. We have multiple people around us that'll take care of our stuff while we're gone. We got neighbors right out behind us that help us out. This particular time, I should say friends too. They started out as neighbors and become friends. But we have another friend that lives just a few minutes down the road from us. It's one of Dearly's best friends. She's a wonderful Filipino lady, and she has an adorable 4-year-old little boy, and he loves chickens. So she came by and made sure they had food and water, made sure the cage was still locked up tight while we were gone, so her little boy could see the chickens. He really liked seeing the baby chicks. But yeah, they're doing great. They probably doubled in size in only the 4 days we were gone. They've got a new layer of feathers. They're loving living outside. So anyway, they're fine. But when I was in Iraq, so I was stationed in Mosul, and we were convoy security. We would lead 100 empty semi-tractor trailers up to this place called Zakho in Iraq. It was part of Kurdistan, right on the border with Turkey, Syria, and Iran. At one point, there was a mountain you could see like all 4 of those countries. We were right on either the Tigris or Euphrates River. On the other side of the river was Turkey. So the next night, we'd take these fully loaded tractor trailers back to Mosul. We were in charge of the main supply line for all of northern Iraq. So we would get up there in Zakho, and we ran missions at night to take advantage of the curfew of the locals. So if we saw somebody out, they were probably bad guys. I mean, that helped. So we'd sleep during the day. Well, we stayed in this old building that was originally like a mall. Well, it was actually one of Saddam's palaces originally. But once we took care of that dirtbag, the locals turned it into like a mall. It was like a 3-story mall. And then once we made it up to that area and secured that area, they let us use it as a base, FOB, forward operating base. So we would sleep in there, and my squad leader comes up to me. He was partial Native American. His grandfather was actually a Native American shaman. The guy was a spiritualist. He was really practiced more Native American customs and cultures than he did the fighting whiteys. Yay! So he comes to me one day and he says, "You're being harassed by an angry ancestor spirit." And I was like, they call me crazy? I'm like, what are you even talking about, brah? And he explains to me that there were a lot of angry ancestor spirits there. I actually believe I saw this thing once. It just looked like an Iraqi man dressed in the man jammies. Not trying to be mean or culturally insensitive. That's just what we called him. I don't know the actual term. But it's like he was standing in the middle of the hall once when I was like up, like half asleep, half awake. And then he'd like step behind a pillar. And I went looking for him because I knew he wasn't. I'm like, this guy's not supposed to be here. But he was gone. There was no one behind that pillar. So my squad leader tells me he's harassing you. There's an angry ancestor spirit. You're having these immense nightmares at night. You're crying in your sleep. You're screaming in your sleep. And you're going to have long-term permanent trauma if I don't sanitize the space where you sleep. I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, I'm going to go find a spot. He says, come with me. We go. He says, you never sleep anywhere but here. I was like, okay, what are you going to do? He says, I'm going to sanitize this spot. Dude sat there like all day, like 4 hours or so before we had to go back to the motor pool back down to Mosul that night. And he was like in a trance, meditating, whatever. So every other night when we were up there in Zakho, I would sleep in that spot, and I slept better than I'd ever slept, even though I was in the middle of a freaking combat deployment. And I never had any problems. I didn't even realize I was being harassed, but the guy, he slept beside me. And he had verification from other soldiers who were like, yeah, Lake, you were like screaming and crying, and we were kicking you, trying to wake you up, and you wouldn't wake up. So it was really going on. But after that, I slept like a rock. Well, about a month or so goes by, and there was another platoon that ended up beating us to that location. And so when we got there was all these other dudes, all these soldiers just sleeping in our spot. And I'm like, man, we were so tired. It was like we were late because it was like a 20-hour mission or something. IEDs everywhere. We had to wait for EOD to come blow them up and all that. And so we get up there. So we go to another room, another bay, as they'd call it in the military. And my squad leader was like, you got to let me sanitize this place for at least an hour before you sleep in here. He's going to come get you. I was like, man, that's hocus pocus, caca, hachoo. Caca, hachoo. Are the two related? No. But I heard footsteps, and now you clearly just heard tree knocks. You watch for movement behind me. We are not alone. There's something going on here. This is a wonderful time of day to catch them on film because this is when the veil grows thin. Where field meets forest, where land meets sky, right at sunset. It's a good time. All right, so anyway, I have to speed this up. We may or may not potentially have a Bigfoot Sasquatch in the woods behind us, so let me speed this up. He's like, I got to sanitize this place. Give me an hour. I'm like, Sergeant, I am just too tired. I plopped down, go right to sleep. Probably slept for 4 or 5 hours. I had a 4 to 5 hour long nightmare that was more terrifying than any dream I've ever had. I remember to this day. I don't think I've ever told it on this channel. I probably never will. I should probably write it because it would be therapeutic. I should write it in one of the upcoming True Hauntings volumes. The most terrifying part of it is that it came true. Yeah. And the next day, well, that night I woke up, I was in the motor pool. I was like, dang, Sergeant, you wouldn't believe this dream. And he's like, yes, I would. He said, I was trying to wake you up the whole time, but the angry ancestor spirit wouldn't let you go in the dream world. He actually entered the dream world on my behalf and tried to fight him in there. I couldn't do anything about it. The guy had more power than him. There's some weird stuff out there, folks. If you've experienced any of it, we would all love to hear it from you. So again, you can email it to us. The email address is crazylake@mail.com. Give us permission to share your story. Give us permission to use your name. If you want to remain anonymous, let us know. We'll keep you anonymous. Thanks for being here. See you next time for more.